Alright pilots, Nick's here for our final installment for the beginner's guide to the Su-27 and 33 flanker. We're going to do air to ground tonight to finish off of our lessons, and we're going to use the Sukhoi 33 instead of the 27 this time. Now they are very similar planes, but the 33 does have bigger, thicker and stronger robust landing gear, so it can handle takeoffs and landings a little bit better. You're less likely to blow your gear out if you land a little heavy or if you overspeed the gear a little too much when you're taking off. It'll take it a little bit more punishment before it damages. You can also see it's got the canards on the front here, and that's these little smaller wings that also articulate, and this makes you a little bit more stable in flight. Now the Sukhoi 33 is also heavier though because of all this. So it's not quite as maneuverable or get up to speed as fast as the 27, but like I said, it's easier to fly. It's got more robust gear. It's a little bit easier to fly because of its stableness, and it does have extra pylons, so you can actually put more of a load on it. We're going to take advantage of that today on our air to ground. Now, once you're equipped in air to ground though, in this flanker, the 33, it's going to act the same as the 27, as in your keybinds and your symbology. Now this is the Navy flanker, so it is made to go off aircraft carriers, but we're not going to go into any of that because this is beginner's guides and we're not going to even mess with that. But you can fold the wings, you do have a tail hook, you can use those on an aircraft carrier, but again, that's advanced, we're not going to get into that. So, key bindings. There's only one key binding we haven't put on here yet that we're going to need for this, and it's just in the modes. So we have our navigation, air-to-air, our vertical scan, and then our bore sight and HMD. So we just need one more, and that's air-to-ground mode. So you just want to put that on, remember how I said there's 6 modes you're going to want to have bound. So this will be one of them, the air-to-ground mode. And that's it. We can get up in the air and we can start dropping weaponry onto the enemy. And we'll do that here in just a second. Let's go into a loadout, which would require a different button than that. Alright, so we're going to do like a standard loadout that I would do if I'm going to go try to sanitize an area of ground targets. I'm going to put on my ECM pods. So if you put on one, it gives you both. Now in the middle, this is the 7 and 6. So this is down the center line. This is where I'm going to put the heaviest bombs I'm going to take. So this is where I'm going to put my RBK 500. And we want the heavy heat AP. So these are cluster munitions. We're going to put them in the middle. On the next, which would be the pylons that are on the bottom of the engine intakes. And here, let's put a couple of 500-pounders. Okay, on the next pylons, this is where we're just going to put some rocket pods on here. So we'll just put some heat frag, the 80 millimeter. So each pod is going to have 20 rockets on it. So that's going to give us 40 explosive rockets. Now 10 and 3 are my favorite pylons because that's where you can put 2 S-25s. We're going to use frags, but you can also use the hardened target penetrator. So it's a little bit smaller of a warhead, but it penetrates armor and does a lot more damage. But it's singular, so you have to get a direct hit on the target for that to be super effective. So we're going to take those. That's 4 frags. We're not going to use the hardens this time. And then on these outer pylons, I could possibly put some more bombs on there. Not very much though, just a 250. So I always put an R-73 here on each side. That way if I do get attacked by something in the air or there's a helicopter or something like that, I can defend myself in the air a little bit before I have to try to run away. So there you go. We got our RBKs. These are clusters. We're going to teach you how to drop these in CCRP. That's continuously calculated release point. So that's when you're flying straight and you mark a target on the ground and you fly over that target and release the bombs at a set point to make sure those bombs land on that target that you had marked on the ground. That is CCRP, level bombing. Next will be the 2500s. We're going to drop those in CCIP. That's continuously calculated impact point, otherwise known as dive bombing. So we're going to get nose down onto the target, come down at about anywhere between a 35 and 25 degree angle. The symbology will change on the HUD and show us a impact pipper, and when we release the bombs, wherever that pipper is where those bombs are going to land roughly. Rockets, pretty simple. You're just going to put symbology up on the HUD, and wherever the pipper is where the rockets are likely to land, as long as you're close enough that you have launch authority to do so. And it's going to be the same with the S-25 rockets. very point and click to fire off these rockets. The bombs are pretty easy too. Again, this is a Russian aircraft, so everything fires off the trigger. And it just fires whatever weapon you have selected as long as you meet all the requirements to get launch authority to let it go. So we're always going to be using the weapon select to make sure we have the correct weapon, using the symbology to get it where we want it, and we're going to launch everything using the trigger. We're not going to get into ripples or anything like that. We're just going to drop. And in a Flaming Cliffs aircraft, setting everything at default, it's going to shoot everything in pairs. So if we drop this bomb, both of them are going to go. If we drop this bomb, both of them are going to go. And that's good for multiple reasons. It's easier. You don't have to worry about setting up your ripples or your pylons. And also it'll keep you uniform in your weight distribution on the plane. So one of the things you'll learn later on in advanced stuff is when you drop a bomb off the wing, and just one bomb, and it's pretty heavy, and you've got another one on the other wing, you have now made your aircraft extremely out of balance, and you have to trim and fight the aircraft to stay normal and level flight. So it's just kind of nice to just drop it pairs. You don't got to worry about it. Plus, it'll make sure you get better damage on the target. So let's load it up.
Request rearming.
And then we will...
Copy.
You can see at the inside of the aircraft, it's basically the same loadout as the Su-27. There's a couple little differences, but nothing that's monumental. You've got your afterburner lights. You'll want to know where those are. Your RWR, it's the same kind of RWR. The data link, it's all here. ADI, HSI, climb. Got your airspeed. You got your altitude, your AOA and G meter. Your radar altimeter, you got a clock. It's all basically the same. The symbology for the gear and all that. So if you know how to fly one, you know how to fly both. And you can do your same key bindings on them, unless you're going to key bind the folding of the wings and the hook and stuff, which, like I said, you don't really need to worry about that. You're not going to use this thing off of an aircraft carrier very often. The aircraft carrier that's the Russian one that you would fly this thing off of is not very good. You're not going to enjoy it that much, so... Alright, let's take a look at our loadout so you can see what stuff looks like. So there's your round bombs right here. It looks closer to an old-timey bomb than a modern bomb, but it is more aerodynamic than the old-timey bombs, and they drop just fine. These are your 20-shot, 80mm heat rockets. These are the big S-25s. You can see it's a very large rocket, and the head looks like a grenade, basically. And that's just a tube. When you fire, that tube will remain on the wing, and the rocket will come out. Your R-73, of course, and then if we can get a good look, there you go, there's the clusters. It looks like a drum or a round canister, like a 55-gallon drum with a fin on the back. And when that releases, it'll drop down, and then it'll open up, and all of the explosives will just pour out of it and kind of spread across the ground. So it's not like a CBU, an American CBU, like a 105 or a 97 that has target-seeking skeets. This just opens up and all the bombs spread out and just basically blanket the area. It's also not as damaging as the skeets, but I mean, this is an older munition on these Russian aircraft. So, we are ready to get started. We're going to take off. It takes off just like the 27, except it's a little bit easier. You're going to have to get a little bit more speed, but you don't have to force it up off the runway like you would the 27. So it's a lot more chill to get this thing up in the air. But we're going to skip that, and I will see you all in the skies for the next part when we start dropping these bombs. Alright, pilots, here we are. We're up in the sky. We are in our Sukhoi 33. We can see our loadout is the one we just put on. We got our ECM pods. We've got all of our rockets, bombs. We're ready to go. So right now we're in an active pause, just so I can go through some symbology for you really quick. So first off, we are in travel mode. We know that from the last few videos. We are in active pause, so we're not moving forward right now. So I'm going to switch to air-to-ground mode. We'll see the symbology switch. So boom, it automatically selects the weapon that we have default selected, which is our farthest pylons away. So that's our outers, which says S-25. So these are our 2 frag S-25 rockets. We will weapon select again. And S8 KOM, that's our 20, our 80 millimeter 20 count rocket pods, the heat rockets. Next one will be bombs. We know those are our 500 pounders, and then the last one I'll just say bombs again. It's just B and B because they're both bombs. But we know these are our RBK 500, our CBUs. And that's going to be the first thing we're going to drop. And I'm going to explain how we're going to do it as we head towards the target. So I'm going to unpause now. And let's let the lag catch up for just a second because, you know, DCS, it lags a little bit when you pause and unpause stuff. All right, so there is our bomb pipper. So the way we're going to drop these RBKs, which is the clusters, is we're going to try to just blanket them over the top of an enemy position, which if we look on our map, we can see there's a whole bunch of bad guys down here inside this mountain range. So down here in a valley, there's a bunch of stuff. And I did not trim that aircraft, so look at that. So let's trim our aircraft while we're talking here to make sure our nose doesn't go straight up in the air. All right, so that pipper is just our targeting pipper. We're not going to drop bombs off of it yet, but what we are going to do is we're going to angle down and we're going to get that pipper and try to get it on top of the middle of our target area, and then we're going to hold down the trigger. When we do, that pipper's going to turn into a diamond, which will be our ground point. And then this circle is going to appear back up here. And this is your aircraft. Think of that as the tail of your aircraft right there. So you can tell we're pitched to the left a little bit now. So we're going to try to get that circle to stay right in line with that tail as we fly over the top of the target area. All the while, we're still holding the trigger down. You never let go of the trigger once you set that ground point. You hold it, and hold it. This carrot will start coming down as you're flying towards that point. When you go over the point, it'll automatically drop the bombs when that carrot hits the bottom. So you make sure not to let go of that trigger. You hold down the trigger until you've passed over the point and you hear those bombs release. And this will be CCRP, continuously calculated release point. So there's our targets down there in the valley. Right down here. Got a bunch of tanks and some trucks and all kinds of stuff down here. Now, when you're CCRPing, it's not the most accurate thing. If you want pinpoint bomb placement, you're going to want to do CCIP and dive bomb because it's way more accurate, but it's also more dangerous because you're flying directly at the target point, which means you're going to get close to it at a high speed. Stuff's going to shoot at you. So CCRP is the safest way to do it, but it is not as accurate, especially doing it this way where you're setting your mark just off the HUD from a distance away. More advanced jets and modern technology, you'll be able to use a targeting pod to zoom in and get a target right where you want it. It's a lot safer, but this is the way you got to do it in these older Russian jets. So here we go, we're nose on, we're coming around. There's a big old mess of vehicles there, so let's just get our pipper right over the top of them here. So right about there, we're going to hold the trigger. So now you can see that circle. We're going to have to go right a little bit, work it back into the middle, and we want to fly as level as we can. We want to go level and keep that pipper in the middle. You see the carrots coming down. As soon as that carrot gets to the bottom, it's going to let those RBKs go.
Launch authorized.
And now I let go of the trigger. Let's pause it and let's watch our bombs come down. So there you go. They've opened them up, and there goes all the clusters. And you can start to see all these trucks coming into view here. We'll see if we got them on there good or not. And there you go. That is a cluster munition. And like I said, doing it CCRP like this is not as accurate as CCIP. So now let's unpause. Let's select our next bombs, our 500s. So let's come back around now and we're going to do a dive bomb and see if we can pinpoint it closer to some of those trucks. Because from a distance and the high altitude we were, it's hard to tell exactly where that diamond is on the ground, right? So it's going to be really hard to make sure you get your bombs exactly where you want them. Usually with clusters, you can set up a ripple to do one after the other, so it'll cover a little bit more ground. But for the most part, those RBKs, the Russian RBKs, are only good at damaging light trucks, not armor, and maybe people, open-top vehicles, stuff like that. Alright, we can see a big chunk of stuff in that tree line there, so let's go ahead and come around. We're going to gain a little bit of altitude because we want to have a decent dive angle when we start coming down onto it. So I'm going to keep the target here to my left because I'm going to roll into it from this direction. And this is so I can keep my eye on the target. If the target was directly below me, I wouldn't know where it is, right? So that's why I'm keeping the target over here to my left. I'm trying to slowly come around to be more directly above it. You want to have some angle. You want to come straight down. You don't want to drop bombs when you're going straight down, trust me. So now we're going to roll over. I'm cutting the throttle a bit. Now I'm just going to let the nose come down. And as soon as I get the top of the HUD on the target there, I'm going to roll past it. Now you can
Launch
see
authorized.
we've got the CCP pipper
Launch
and
authorized.
bombs away. Now we're slowly pulling back. Let's pause it and see where our bombs go. So that was right into that tree line, and we got a whole bunch of guys. So you can see that wherever that pipper was, when I release those bombs, that is more generally exactly where those bombs hit. That was a pretty steep dive, but like I said, a steep dive makes it more accurate. But you don't want to be completely vertical. You don't want a 90-degree dive. Because then when you release your bombs, there's a chance they'll actually bump into your plane, which is bad. Alright, next, super simple, let's just switch to our rocket pods. Now these, the pipper is your targeter, period. You're just going to fly towards the target, keeping the target in your HUD, put the pipper on it, and when you get close enough, it's going to give you a launch authority. And once it says launch authority, that's where you know the rockets are going to hit there on your pipper. But you have to wait till you have launch authority. Like if I get the pipper right there where those trucks are and I fire it now, those rockets aren't going to get there. We don't have launch authority yet.
Authorized.
Now we do. So now let's get the pipper right about there. Let's hold down the trigger and throw rockets. Boom, boom, boom. Right through them all. Nice. Very good
Launch
stuff.
authorized.
So our last weapon is going to be the S-25s, which are probably one of your best weapons you've got. They're fairly accurate. They fire just like those rockets before, but when you pull the trigger, one rocket is going to dispense. We have 4 shots. They're highly damaging. Let's look at our AWACS map here and see where the most concentration of stuff is. Looks like right about here, right? So let's come back around and see if we can spot that area. It's on the back side of the biggest pile of stuff there. So let's come around, and then I'm going to do an active pause so we can use our Mark 1 eyeballs here and kind of get the lay of the land. So that in our head we can kind of match it up from what we saw on the AWACS. Alright, so we're paused now. So there's this group here we can see, and then there's this group right here we can see. And we know the biggest concentration of stuff is right in here. So we're going to start right about here and fire one of those S-25s, then another one, then another one, then another one. We're going to get all 4 of them right through here because these have a decent explosive radius and they are fragmentation. So all those troops that are standing around these vehicles are probably going to be in that blast radius. So we're going to try to get as many of them as we can. And unpause. Let's get it done. So we're going to wait for the launch authority. I'm going to keep the pipper right about in here. You can see the carrot coming down to our max and minimum range. And we're about ready.
Launch
1,
authorized.
2, 3, 4.
Pull up. Pull up.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Look at all that.
Pull up. Pull up.
And there you go. That's CCRP bomb drops, CCIP bomb drops, and the usage of both kind of rockets. That is basically all you need to know to get into your Su-27 flanker or your Su-33 flanker or even your J-11 flanker. The J-11 is just the Chinese version. It's going to fly the same for the most part, and it's going to have the same key bindings you can set up for it. The only difference is the Chinese one is actually better because it can carry R-77 air-to-air missiles, which are a Fox 3, which if you need to know what that is, go back to the second video on air-to-air and it'll go through those missile differences for you. And that might make you want to fly the J-11 in the air for air-to-air engagements more than the others. I personally like all 3 aircraft and I use them all differently. But definitely if I'm doing air-to-ground, I usually take the 33 because it's just a more robust jet. It can carry more, and it's just a lot easier to fly. So, pilots, thanks for joining me on this minor beginner's guide. I hope this gets you started. Don't worry, there's a lot more to learn, but just to get started and get flying is all these videos are for. And I can say this, you want to keep flying and just keep working on the basics and getting better. The more advanced stuff, you'll get to it, and the more comfortable you are in the jet, the more you retain information, the easier things will be, and the better pilot you'll become. So don't speed, don't go too fast, don't try to learn everything at once. Get comfortable and learn what you know, and then move on from there. And I will see you all in the skies, pilots.